Hi everyone, First Warn 5 Meteorologist Melissa Meeder here on your Friday night, bringing you the latest updates on this freezing drizzle potential and rain potential across the area. So right now we're looking at our satellite and radar over about the last hour. You can see that there are some areas of pink, which is mainly north of the metro along the I-35 corridor. That would be freezing drizzle, while we're starting to see some more kind of larger isolated showers starting to build in south of I-70 in our southeastern area. So let's kind of go sector by sector of what's happening across the area at this moment, because there is some freezing drizzle right now on the radar. So this is kind of our local radar, so I'll add this on there. We start to lose some of the kind of radar beam and the reflectivity when we get a little bit farther north, so that's why it may look a little bit different. But we're seeing areas of light freezing drizzle towards Jameson, Cameron, as well as in Lawson, out towards places like Bramer, seeing a little bit of some light drizzle, but some freezing drizzle may mix in with that as well. As we move a little bit towards our eastern areas, towards Carrollton, seeing a little bit of that freezing drizzle as well, and towards Richmond too. So some of this is intermixed with a little bit of light regular rain drizzle too. So as this, is falling, could cause some slick areas too. Now, as we continue to move towards the south, we see a little bit towards starting to form towards Lawson, Excelsior Springs, seeing a little bit of some light rain as well. I want to push a little bit more towards the south. The metro is dry at this moment. There was a little bit of light drizzle that came through earlier. I went outside to make sure it was actually hitting the ground, so it was, but it's a very light drizzle. I assume what's happening in the northern areas where they're seeing that freezing drizzle, it's also very light overall. If we take a look down towards Higginsville, as well as Warrensburg, Clinton, Appleton City, Garden City, seeing some of that light rain now too, but it's more of a darker green than what we're seeing in our northern areas, that indicating to me it's a little bit heavier in nature. And by heavier, I mean probably like a light rain. We're not seeing like heavy downpours or any of that with this system right now at this time. However, that could change through the overnight. Now, the main culprit of what is, going to occur in terms of rain or freezing drizzle is going to be the temperatures at the surface, and mainly in our northern areas is where we're going to see the best potential to see any sort of light glaze culminate between now and about tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. So I'm talking about Maryville, Bethany along our northern border. That's where they see that potential for a light glaze to occur. I think in the Kansas City metro area along I-70, the window is just about closed for us to see any of that freezing drizzle. However, a little bit northward, like towards Richmond, St. Joseph, Atchison, Cameron, I think it's still possible to see some of that freezing drizzle mix in, which we just saw on radar too. So it's kind of teetering along that temperature kind of profile that we see right now. So speaking of those temperatures, let's look at them at this moment. If we take a look, southern areas south of I-70, lower to mid to upper 40s. We are going to see rain in those areas as it's well above the freezing mark. Kansas City right now, we're sitting at 35 degrees. That's kind of right close enough where we could see a little bit of that freezing drizzle, because while we are warmer than freezing, our roadways might not be there yet. So keep that in mind. Now, we're coldest in places like Maryville and Bethany at 31 degrees in Bethany, so cold there. Below the freezing mark in Bethany, hovering around in mainly our northeastern areas at this point, and that's really why they're seeing that freezing drizzle. So it's really going to be what happens with our temperatures is we're going to have a warm front move through the area. The warm front's already starting to lift, but the warm front, as it moves, north, we get a little bit warmer. That warm front moving through the overnight, so we're going to see increasing temperatures through the night. So this is what we could see. So here we are at 6 p.m. This model particularly has us about 2 degrees warmer on average for most places. So keep that in mind. But overall, that our northern areas, Cameron, Bethany, Maryville, they hang out in that around that freezing mark the longest, as well as places like maybe Chillicothe too. They kind of hang out around that freezing mark, hover around that the longest. That's why they see that better potential for some of that light glaze to culminate on the ground. So By about 10 o'clock tonight, we're expecting Kansas City, I think, to probably be in the upper 30s, low 40s. That should give enough time for our ground to get a little bit warmer than the freezing mark. So I think for sure we should see more of rain if there is precipitation over our area, rain versus that freezing drizzle. I think 10 o'clock and on, that's when we see rain start to build up and be more common in our southern areas versus like Maryville and Bethany and Cameron up towards the north. So that freezing mark in the northern areas, they kind of hover around there through the night and into about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, just barely starting to kind of reach that cusp of where we're going to see rain over that freezing drizzle in the north. But by tomorrow morning along the I-70 corridor, Kansas City around 45 degrees. So it'll be rain. And with this increase in temperature comes a little bit of instability in the air. That will allow for the potential for some rumbles of thunder through the overnight too. So we are going to see a little bit of that freezing drizzle towards the north, possible over, about the next kind of 12 hours in the northern areas, mainly along our northern border, while the rest of us are likely going to see increasing chances for rain, as well as some thunderstorm activity. So now that it's 7 o'clock, I'm going to pull this a little bit farther ahead. I think that some of our models are overdoing this, and it's a little bit shifted towards the west on this particular model. So keep that in mind. But I do think that by the time we get into about the midnight hour, we're likely going to start to see some rumbles start to pop up, and the coverage of the rain start to become a little bit more widespread than what we're seeing. I do want to note that still by midnight, Maryville, Bethany, our northern areas, still seeing that potential for that freezing drizzle, which is on par with what we're thinking here in the First Warn 5 weather team. After midnight is when we see the best chance to see any of those rain and rumbles. We're also going to see really some heavier downpours be possible within some of this activity that we see across the area. So we'll see some darker greens, some oranges, some yellows as we move through the night, mainly in our eastern areas. Now, come 5 a.m. Saturday morning, early in the morning, looking like widespread activity across the KCTV5 region. Our northern areas, as I mentioned, getting above that freezing point at this point. So really starting to see the fight between the rain and probably that freezing drizzle. So we'll likely, after, sunrise on Saturday, see more of rain versus the freezing drizzle in the north. Our western areas could see some of that thunderstorm activity towards Lawrence, Ottawa, and then this will continue to dart towards the east across the kind of west to east across the metro and the I-35 corridor between about 5 a.m., 9, 10 o'clock. And that's really kind of looking like the last oomph of the system where we could see that thunderstorm activity. So by 9 a.m. along our eastern borders, and then we are going to see maybe some activity on the back half of the system, some scattered showers, but the bulk of the activity should be done by around lunchtime. So here we are at noon on Saturday, some spotty showers left over, but maybe we'll see a little bit of clearing in the afternoon. And then by about 5 o'clock, maybe a thunderstorm or two left over in the northeast, but it's pretty much wrapped up by then, especially compared to what we'll probably see in the morning. So 5, 6 o'clock, things get a little bit more quiet. I think when this is all said and done, there could be some pockets of, heavier rainfall embedded within some of the thunderstorm activity. So in terms of rainfall potential totals that we'll see, or how much rain could fall between now and tomorrow evening, mainly between about 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch. Better amounts are going to be in those eastern areas to see some higher amounts, because that's where they have that thunderstorm activity a few times. So I think we can't rule out an area of an inch of accumulated, or I should say an inch of potential rainfall with the system in some of our eastern areas, or where you fall under a little bit of a heavier downpour. Right now on our Retina First Warn 5 weather cam, it's gloomy out there, and we're mainly quiet at this time in terms of temperature, but I think By, of course, 10 o'clock, as I had mentioned. Probably earlier than that, though, is when we're really going to feel confident that that freezing drizzle threat will come to an end for the metro. And along the I-70 corridor, we transfer to more of that precipitation type as rainfall through the night into the overnight. And that's when we see those rain and rumble chances start to really pick up. Now, I think temperature-wise, we're going to increase, as I had mentioned, through the night into the mid-40s. We kind of hover around there for a few hours. So while we start in the mid-40s, we've got that chance for rain. We will see that chance for rain and thunderstorm activity through most of, the first half of the day on Saturday. But temperature-wise, we'll be in the 40s and into the upper 40s by 11 o'clock. So later in the day, I think maybe we see a little bit of peaks of sunshine, more drier hours in the evening rather than in the first half of the day. So if you have any outdoor plans or anything that you want to do, make sure, you're aware that there could be some rain and thunderstorm activity around for the first half of the day. But otherwise, temperatures are going to be seasonably warm, around 50 degrees on Saturday afternoon. And then we will be even warmer and nicer come Sunday. It will be a breath of fresh air compared to what we've seen kind of today with the gloomy conditions that have built in for the second half of the day. And then tomorrow's a rainy start to the weekend. Sunday, nearly picture perfect dry. It's warmer. We're in the lower 50s. Should be a really good day to get out and about and do any, holiday things. I've been saying, because when I was living in Nebraska, I was soaking up every minute that I had in the holiday season to do fun things outside when temperatures were warm. So I think Sunday is definitely a day to do that, get out and about and do some fun things out there. On Sunday night, we could see a few isolated showers start to build in, likely after midnight. So we have the chance for rain on Monday, technically, because it would be earlier in the day. I think it may linger overall to, the early morning hours. I think by 9 o'clock should be pretty much out of the area. So some very isolated showers will be possible on Monday morning. But other than that, we're looking dry for the remainder of the week. Or I should say the next 7 days or the next work week. I'll move myself off so you guys can see the full 7 day. And we'll fall from the low 50s on Monday to the upper 40s on Tuesday, upper 30s Wednesday and Thursday. And then on Friday, we'll be back up into the lower 40s. That's actually right kind of where we should be for this time of year, is in that lower to mid 40 degree range. So pretty much most of the 7 day forecast is well above our average, except for Wednesday and Thursday. So partly cloudy conditions for majority of the next 7 days, that chance for rain and rumbles tomorrow, and then the small chance for rain Sunday night and into Monday morning. So of course, I will be here through the rest of this evening, watching the radar, watching the latest kind of trends on our models to see what's going to happen with this freezing rain and that kind of rain and thunderstorm potential as we go through the overnight. And I will come back to give you any notifications if anything changes. So I hope everybody has a great Friday night. Join us here on KCTV5 at 10. And I hope everybody has a good night and a great weekend, and stay safe on the roadways this evening.